All right, so we are recording now. Thank you for the reminder. So the structure that we just planned to have for today's meeting, because this is kind of like the startup one, is that me and Oscar have kind of went through like our own why, how, and what we think this could be. But we really wanted to start with everyone having an opportunity to talk, why they're at all interested, how they think this could work between a meetup time and the chat that we have inside the thread and topic and forward link, and what we would hope to come out of it. So, you know, in the case of me starting with my why, I'll say is like, really, I just explained it. I tend to organize the educators in all of them. I've valued meeting educators in the Akimbo world. We decided to call it Stop Stealing Dreams because we figured we really could. I have not dug into that on a deeper level. And in talking to other educators, I don't think, even if they read it, they don't always know what does it look like in practice and how do I actually, what are the examples? And so that's kind of like the why that I bring to this, this time or this intention. So the other thing about popcorn in, or we could go in some order. So, or I could choose the next person. That would be Mickey came, or no, let me go to Oscar and then Oscar will choose who goes next. Let's do, we call this train. Let's do that.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, as Nicole previously mentioned, we've been meeting for the past few months. I met Nicole in Pod 6 during one of her calls, and I mentioned during that call that I was a teacher, that I was interested in education, and that was pretty much it until I kept seeing how passionate and encouraged she was about the subject, bringing even Seth Godin's attention to one of her topics. And they had a discussion about making a ruckus in education and the pros, the cons, the obstacles, and whatnot. So I was so super interested in what I was seeing from her. And then I noticed the meeting link that she had going for on a weekly basis right there. So I decided to join her. We kept talking, and we've been thinking about what else we can do. We've been exchanging strategies. We've been exchanging experiences, and basically the reason I'm here is I was so impressed with Stop Stealing Dreams, with those two lines of solving interesting problems and teaching people how to lead. I felt that was so important. I felt that this whole way of we're testing wrong, we're not teaching the actual things that we should be teaching was so important, was so necessary. And I got invited to teach 2 years ago. I took the chance. I didn't even think about it. I didn't want to know what I was going to have to teach, when I would have to teach. The schedule didn't matter. I just wanted to say yes. I did so. And I noticed that when you try and when you're looking for different ways to actually show that you care, transmit something, transmit a message, spread a message to your students, they start listening actually. So that's something that I noticed is magical within education. And my why is simply the same why that drove one of my most influential teachers. He once said, if you want to change culture, go in education. That was magical for me. That moved me, that pushed me, that led to my desire to someday teach. And I hope that I can inspire some of my students to actually do that change in culture too. So that's me. And let's hear from Cassandra. If you're done with your meal, we'd love to hear you.
Yes, I am, and I moved outside, which is very nice out. Let me know if there's any odd background noise, but I I keep saying yes to opportunities that Nicole shares. And so that's my first main reason for being here, is because I um there's a distinct commonality with how I think that both Nicole and I see the word educator. And I think in terms of, I think it's a role that I'll probably always hold in some way in my life. Right now, it's it's evolving into being an educator for young children out in nature, and as well as an educator for their parents and caregivers, um, and for their educators in their regular school setting, for lack of a better word. But I tend to be uh, very intentionally now on the outskirts of the regular school day, doing camp programming, doing after school programming, working with children under the age of 5. And because I have always, since I wanted to be a teacher, I've always wanted to avoid having to teach to any standards. So I've done that by being intentional about avoiding a specific age group, and teaching in a public school setting or even a private school setting. So, but yeah, I think that it comes down to my ideas about education are definitely on the radical outskirts in any case. So yeah, I to share a little, just one more thing. I just since Nicole and I met in the podcasting fellowship, I literally just finished my trailer for the podcast that I'm starting, so I'm very excited about that. Thank you. And it's all about change, and the first series that I'm offering is about supporting people who are wanting to shift towards more nature-based learning opportunities. And so I'm very, very keen on, like, what are the changes within education, within all of these people who have their hands in education. What are the changes we're really witnessing, and how can we better support ourselves in those changes and support one another? So I'll end it with that.
Did you want to choose?
I'll pick somebody. Yes. I'm gonna pass it to Jewel, because I recognize your name, but I haven't met you yet. So
Hi, Cassandra. Nice to meet you in live. Before I do myself, I just wanted to say that because of what you said, I had a friend, really good friend, in 6th grade. Her teacher, Mrs. Lopez, took the students outdoors almost every single day. She taught everything via the outdoors, math, science. I mean, it was everything. And Lee talked about her. I mean, lots of school happened after Mrs. Lopez, but Mrs. Lopez was Mrs. Lopez's were the lessons she remembered. So I'm Jewel. I'm in Cincinnati. I was in pod 6. I have how many? I have 17 episodes. I feel good about that. I got into education through actually my master's program. Actually, no. Through dental hygiene. I actually have a dental hygiene bachelor's degree, which with the double major in public health and dental hygiene education. And then when I didn't want to be a hygienist anymore, they said, well, if you take the education part of your degree, you can get a master's in education. So I said, oh, can't do that. It's quick. So I worked in corporate learning for the longest time, and then transitioned, and now I've left the corporate world, and I teach part-time at the University of Cincinnati, teaching inclusion and diversity. And I feel really good. I feel so comfortable. I'm glad I'm doing this now because my whole attitude is, I don't care what you think in terms of this, the bureaucracy and the, all the stuff they tell you. It's, I don't care what you think. I know what people need to learn. They need to know you believe in them. They need to know the arena that they're going to be exploring. It's self-directed learning with support is, that's what that's my whole goal. And I work, fortunately, the UC has a couple of really good support. They're called instructional designers or learning facilitators. Anyway, they're there for the professors to help us do good work. And they talk about backwards design, and you just work with the end in mind, and whatever will get to that, that's what you do, which means that there's part of my class where I wear a wig and I pretend to be somebody else and they have to talk to me. And I'm not all that easy to talk to when I'm this person. And that's part of the learning. So anyway, and I came because Nicole does cool stuff. And I thought, oh, let's see what Nicole's up to. And I picked next to go, Jessica.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. I'm honored to be here. I'm not an educator, but I'm a parent, and both my boys are in the public schools. And I just, like you all, I believe there's a big change needs to be made for the schools, and also for how we look at the schools as a parent. Yeah, and Drew and Annette and Nicole and Mickey are the people that I knew through podcast workshop, and I launched my podcast last month, and after first episode. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm also a registered Acumen Academy Circles host, and I was invited to attend education roundtable over there in their community, which I found is very interesting. That how everybody literally, I see the universal passion and the movement towards education reform, or like how to bring people together, how to change what's hasn't been worked, especially through the pandemic. So yeah, so that's what brought me here. And I intruded at Nicole and Oscar's meeting once. They had a meeting and I just logged in. Yeah, so yeah.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. You guys are so kind. And yeah, so this is a formal invite, and I'm pretty sure it's okay to be here. That's why I joined today. It's wonderful seeing you all. And I know Katie from Story Skills Workshop. And Cassandra, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Who are you handing it off to there?
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you for reminding me that. How about Katie?
You're on mute now. Oh, there.
I've been in education my whole life. I've been in, public school, private school, teacher, administrator, started a school, started a national organization. And I've been writing about education I've been writing a book about education for about 5 or 6 years. And so I was able to finish the first draft of that book in Story Skills 1. That book is about the history of education, how we got where we are today. There's several through lines in the book. One is gender, the cultural influences of gender discrimination, and also not to be missed is all of the implications of race from colonial times to present. And so that's that book. And then, but of course, you know, you all have to know that nobody wants to publish books about education because there's no economic advantage for publishers, because no one buys them, because all the books about education are in the children's section with the toys that are masquerading as books. And so I'm back in writing and community again. I'm doing two things. I'm working on a proposal for my book. I'm still moving forward with that, even though I understand the reality of publishing it. I may have to publish it, self-publish it, and what I've been saying for years is give it away out of the trunk of my car. I'm now writing a book about a music teacher. What I say about that book is there's probably 7 readers in the entire world who want to read that book. The music teacher himself and 6 of his students. However, I told him that this week and he said, oh, my wife will read it too. So maybe there are 8 readers. He definitely does music, middle school music, in a very different way than anybody ever thought of, which is he says to the kids, form your own band. Tell me what song you want to play and I'll teach you how to play it. So today is his annual rock concert, which is always a big deal at his school. However, it's the second year it'll be virtual. Let's see, anything else you need to know about me? I have like 2 other ideas of books that I want to write about education, but that's probably all you need to know about me. How about you, Mickey? Tell us about you.
Oops. There we go. Can you hear me? So, Stop Stealing Dreams. That title really it grabbed me. So I figured, okay, I better join this because this is pretty interesting. I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I used to work at the University of Calgary for 31 years. I worked in geoscience. So I understand what it's like to be outdoors. I worked with a lot of geologists. I mostly worked as a technician though, but I worked with a lot of students, a lot of students. And a lot of students got into geology there, I mean, in Calgary, because if you know anything about Calgary or Calgary, Alberta, Canada, it's a very petroleum-based economy that we have here. So a geologist during the boom times when oil prices are really high, you can make a lot of money. Like you can make tons and tons of money. It's a really prominent career. But because of that, I saw a lot of students getting into geology for the wrong reasons or geophysics for the wrong reasons. They're treating education as a real means to an end. And I think, yeah, you're going back to the title, you stop stealing dreams. I worked with a lot of students that you could see that they were just in the wrong path. They were just in the wrong career. They shouldn't be in this. So as far as education is concerned, and that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast, I'm trying to show at least the listeners that there's different ways. There's so many different career paths a person can take. Don't just streamline. Don't try to use education as a means to an end. So yeah, I figured I'd just join here to see what kind of ideas people are spinning around. And I'll pass it to, I think, Annette's the last one, is it?
I think I am.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. Again, I'm not an educator either, so you can kick me out right now, along with Jessica or whoever. But and Cassandra, my background's evolutionary biology. I'm a zoologist, and I'm in Amarillo, Texas, which is in the top square part. I'd love to know where everybody else is. A few of you have mentioned it. But I've been an education advocate for a long time. I have 3 boys that grew up in the public school system here. I got involved. I've been on the school board in Amarillo 19 years. And I'm now in my second 6-year term for Amarillo College, which is our community college, which just won a big award yesterday from the Aspen Institute. We're number 5 out of all the colleges in the state, in the nation. So community colleges, so proud of that. But a lot of that grew out of the work that I've done as a sort of collective impact effort here, because everything was in silos, and nobody really knew what each other were doing. So our big focus has been on the issue of educational attainment, improving access, improving alignment between the different systems, and then also on the challenges of poverty and working to move people out of poverty through education. And Amarillo College has really embraced that work and does some pretty phenomenal stuff. But I agree, and I had dropped in the forward link discussion my podcast with Maria Zinadu and Seth Godin about about education and what is school really for. And it was, it's a wonderful discussion. Of course, I've just admired Seth's thought patterns on a lot of stuff, but certainly on education. And while I'm part of the system and have been for decades now, I still think we can do better. And I've always said that all schools should be like kindergarten and science labs. So, and a lot of it should be outdoors, Cassandra, I agree with you. There's so much to learn and so much more to schooling than the current accountability system that's shoved down our throat. And I'm sorry, Texas helped lead the way there. But I'm involved in politics, involved in advocacy, involved in all levels of education and community work. So I'll stop there.
Wow, that's a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences and why we're in education and why we're interested in this. Thank you all so much. The thought on how this could work, right? So I think if we had a meetup every time and you have new people, it's hard to be like, oh, do we all go through the why? Like, I don't think that works on an ongoing basis, but to sort of become familiar at the beginning, I think it was really helpful and important. The how this meeting could normally work is something that we'd like to source ideas. Like, is a half an hour enough once a month to connect? Because then it allows us to have some familiarity with each other and have some faces and do we just I'll say the how that we originally envisioned was an actual like breakout rooms based on and having it where we've agreed in advance one of the sort of stop stealing dreams entries that we think is really worth digging in and having discussion around. So the how of the thread could be people putting in like their kind of favorite posts to be like, I think this could make a good conversation. And then we pick one, everybody reads it before the meeting, and then we dig in to have conversations about really, I think what me and Oscar were centering on was like, how do you help? What does this look like in the real world? And how would we help spread this message to other educators was really where our conversation started, to say that as educators who have read this and encounter other people who you can hand it to them, but then they still have no idea how to do that. And maybe sourcing stories, or directing them to podcasts or something, and or other tangible things that could come out of it, including the fact that me and Oscar have talked about doing co-hosting a podcast that would be an extension of this kind of conversation that so it all kind of went around for me. A lot of it is always so how, I don't know what people, this is where we knew that a half an hour would be quick, but we also know that educators are busy and a lot of times it is just kind of finding a little time to connect and start a conversation and then doing things in a synchronous and asynchronous way. So we have that beautiful forward link place that we can continue maybe the how conversation. And does anybody want to offer, just while we're here, like another thought? Like, do they think that works in terms of a structure to dig into these things together? And you like that? Thumbs up. Okay. Thumbs up helps too. Annette, okay.
Can I ask something or just,
Yeah. Yep.
because to me, I always go back to, if we're not happy with the system we've got, how did that system begin? Katie's got written a book on the history of education. I mean, are there some threads there we need to follow through? Because where are the points that we can actually change things? And those aren't always easy levers to pull. So, or do we want to start easier?
All
Well, and
about decision making and who has control, who has power.
so these are things, and these are conversations that I definitely think are worth having. And I think that they could become the topic for the whole meeting. And that's what I think. So why don't we leave this meeting with we'll experiment with that how method next semester. Look at the language of school. We'll experiment that with this method next month, where we'd probably do like rooms of 2 to 3 people, probably 3. And it would be on a topic that we've agreed on in advance, but we're going in there because what I heard Annette say is she has a thought on what we should start talking about. She thinks her thought is maybe connected to something Katie's doing. And then like we could start with like, where should we start? Like, where should we begin? Esther Perel, But yeah, I think that would be a good first conversation to have in the thread. And the stuff gets deleted after 2 weeks, just so you know. I can't stop that. So, but I'll be on it to be able to continue. And I wonder if we test stuff, if you like highlight stuff and quote people, it probably will still stay. So I would engage in quoting to make sure that there's some continuity. Katie?
So I just have a clarifying question. So is this a group that has a name that it's going to be easy to communicate with each other? So Stop Stealing Dreams is the name of the group.
No.
Yes.
That's the name of the meetup. The group is Educators. At Educators. Yes, at Educators. So yeah, so you join Educators. We can add you if you want to all be added. If you're not in there already, we can definitely do that from here. And we can use the way they do it in Forward Link is not everybody can tag that though. So it makes sense to like actually, so yeah, this is good because, I shouldn't have hit share when I don't know what's coming.
But if it's the name of a group, you can do direct messaging to each other.
Not in Forward Link. We'll try it, but I think it's only me and Oscar. Oh,
I'm in a Forward Link group and you can direct message. In fact, just when I was looking for this, I was like, 15 things have been posted there.
yeah. Well, they make a distinction between public groups and private groups. So
Right.
it may not work, just so you know. If you find that, I'll be watching, and if you see that Jewel, maybe that's something that if you guys are part of it, any one of you that's already part of it could go in there and tag them, and then we'll make sure and like see if we got that notification. That would be helpful. I know you'll get it from me and Oscar because we're considered the owners of the group, but I'm not sure if you would get it from each other. But we wanted it to be publicly visible because the other ones are not publicly. I'm part of other groups, but they're not publicly visible. They're by like invitation only.
Right.
So, yeah. So yeah, add Educators, join it if you haven't. I was recommending you follow I think it says watching. You can watch the thread if you want to see everything. You get every notification. Currently it's not that busy, so it might be worthwhile to just watch it. And if it gets overwhelming, shut it down in terms of you don't have to watch everything there, but and then we'll post this video there, but again, it'll go away in 2 weeks. That's the hard part of how they're making it. They want us to centralize, but then they'll delete our stuff after 2 weeks. So I have to see if there's a place. It allows people who missed it to catch up, right? So, okay. Any other hows or questions? It
I
did go
just wanted
quick.
to say I like that you set aside 30 minutes. It's nice because it seems like very attainable. It's like, okay, we can do this. And I think that the breakout groups and maybe they are stealing stealing dreams focused, and then maybe it's like, oh hey, I really want to talk about this other idea, and then that could easily be integrated just into a breakout group. So I think the framework will be supportive and flexible enough, but also supportive enough.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so we'll start the conversation on how suggestions and what, and putting in your favorite Stop Stealing Dreams topics, and we'll pick something before next meeting and dig into that. Make sure everybody knows which one, like a week before or so. Okay? Thank you, Annette.
Okay.
I saw you do that. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's so good to see all of you. Have a
Good to see you
wonderful
too.
day. See you next month.
Thank
See you on the
you.
Happy to
boards.
meet
Thank
you.
you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.